Hi, everybody. Brad Truax here from Eastman's Woodlands and Wildlife Committee. Today, we're going to talk about blue jays. So, why blue jays? Well, I've never been much of a bird watcher, but my college team was the Johns Hopkins Blue Jays, and my favorite baseball team is the Toronto Blue Jays. So, what better bird to pick for a bird presentation? And they're actually one of the most recognizable birds around my bird feeder in the winter, and they happen to be incredibly interesting birds. So here goes. There's the blue jay. They're bigger than most songbirds. They're about 9 to 12 inches long, and they weigh just over 3 ounces. Their wingspan is probably 13 to 17 inches, and they're mostly blue. The wings and the tail are checkered with differing shades of blue, interspersed with some white and some black lines. And the underbelly is white, and they have a blue crest, and there's a black U-shaped collar under its neck and a black border behind the crest. So again, the black markings on the nape, the face, and the throat are very unique. They almost act like a fingerprint. And that pattern allows individual birds to recognize each other. There's no sexual dimorphism. Male and female blue jays look alike. And that's much different with the situation with most bird species, where the male is usually more colorful and the female duller. That's called sexual dimorphism. So the fact that the male and female blue jay look alike is called monomorphism. And the males may be slightly larger. And if you see one blue jay feeding another, the recipient is most likely a female. But otherwise, it's almost impossible to tell the male and the female blue jay alike. Uh, Once again, for most bird species, the male is usually more colorful and the female duller, and that's known as sexual dimorphism. But the blue jays break that rule. So on the top, you see the cardinals. The female cardinal is kind of dull. The male cardinal is much richer, colorful red. And down at the bottom, the male and the female blue jay look very much alike. So what's with the crest? Okay, the crest of the blue jays are used to communicate with others. In the top, the crest is raised. And that usually indicates alertness or agitation or aggressiveness. And on the bottom, the crest is down. And blue jay is very calm and unconcerned at that point in time. What do you mean they're not blue? Blue jays are actually not blue. The top is a blue jay feather. Do you see any blue in that? No, there's not blue at all. It's more of a gray brown color with melon and pigment in there. And their wings contain pockets of air and keratin, and that scatters the light. And so the light that scatters blue wavelengths to our eyes. This is much the same phenomenon that makes the sky look blue to us. Very interesting. So blue jays are graceful flyers. Their wingspan, as I mentioned, is 13 to 17 inches, and they can fly up to 20 to 25 miles per hour.
Blue jay is moderately slow flyer. Their wings flap with an up and down motion to propel them forward. Blue jay can be easily recognized from a distance, flying with spread wings and displaying the blue color feather plumage. They fly with body and tail held level with slow wing strokes. When they fly away, they usually fly straight ahead first.
So that's interesting. They usually tend to fly in a straight line first before they'll ascend up into the trees. So where do blue jays live? Well, they're common in the eastern half of the US and southern Canada, and they're very slowly moving westward. They don't like pure coniferous forests. Rather, they like mixed coniferous deciduous forests, particularly those that have lots of oak, beech, and hazel trees. Why is that? and that's because their favorite food are nuts. But they'll also make use of the conifers for nesting. And some may migrate in winters, but others stay put. And they may flock together in winter, but those flocks tend to fragment early in spring, and they become much more territorial at that point. So again, this is a map showing most of the eastern half of the U.S., east of the Rockies, has plenty of blue jays. Southern Canada has lots of blue jays, and they've just recently been making some inroads into the western half of the U.S. And though they need those nut-producing trees like the oaks, the beech, and the hazel trees, they also need conifers for nesting purposes. So, what do blue jays eat? They eat seeds, nuts, berries, and insects. Acorns are a huge favorite, and they're all interestingly, they're often also seen eating paint chips off walls or decks, and that's primarily to get the calcium that's in those paint chips. So, blue jays love nuts. They love various types of nuts. They'll cache them in multiple different sites. They may bury them in the ground or in crevices in trees. And they may carry multiple acorns or peanuts at one time. So here you see he's got probably an acorn up top. Here's one that has a peanut below. And they actually play a huge role in the saga of the oak tree. A little more about that in a minute. Acorns that fall directly below an oak tree probably won't germinate. And that's because they're basically in the shadows of that big oak. They don't get enough sunlight. So squirrels and jays and some woodpeckers actually carry the acorns away and cache them in various sites. They may drop some of them, and some of those that are dropped may germinate into oak trees, or they may simply forget where they cached some of those, and those can ultimately germinate into oak trees. So blue jays have a unique relationship with the oak trees. Here you see two blue jays that are sitting in an obvious oak tree. This is probably in winter. This is marcescens. The leaves have not fallen off the oak tree. Doug Tallamy, who is a famous conservationist, notes that the oak and the jay lineage appeared together about 1 million years ago. So they co-evolved. And the blue jays are actually the most important means of disseminating acorns that eventually grow into new oak trees. So again, he notes that this is a long-standing situation. The jays don't bury acorns in one spot. They tend to bury them singly. And they'll pick up an acorn, may fly as far away as 1 mile away. And a single jay can bury up to 5,000 acorns each fall, but they only recover one of every 4. So that essentially means that a jay is planting over 3,000 oak trees each year. That's an incredible statistic, and probably the most important thing in keeping oak trees developing. It's interesting. Peanuts are also a favorite of the blue jays. And if a blue jay is confronted with, let's say, 5 peanuts, it'll pick each one up before it chooses the one to take away. It's most likely determining the weight of the peanut that's inside. And the nut that's already past its prime will tend to weigh less. So let's watch this video. They will avoid peanuts whose shells have cracks or openings in them. So he actually sampled about 5 of them before he picked the one that had the best nut in it. Interesting, there's a delicacy for the blue jays. They're often seen breaking into wasp nests. And these are usually small, new wasp nests, and they'll feast on the larvae that inside. They may even eat the queen. They also practice in something called anting. They'll pick up ants and rub them against their feathers. Well, when they rub them against the feathers, the ants release formic acid, and that apparently helps the jays get rid of parasites. And the jays will then eat the ants, which are no longer bitter after they've released the formic acid. So it's kind of like a two for the price of one benefit. Several other bird species also practice anting. So again, blue jays are known to sometimes bob up and down. This is often accompanied by what's called the squeaky gate call. And this may be either a territorial gesture or a courtship gesture. So it's bobbing up and down, and that squeaky noise was called the squeaky gate call. They'll also do another unusual behavior, that's wing flickering. And of course, most often you're going to see the hatchlings doing this, and that simply means I'm hungry and want to be fed. But sometimes the adult blue jays will also do this. So let's watch this. So that's wing flickering. Well, if you just saw the shadow of a blue jay, you might think it resembles a crow. And that shouldn't be surprising since they're both members of the family Corvidae. Blue jays are considerably smaller than the crows or the ravens. So down here you'll see a raven, here's a crow, here's a blue jay down here, a couple other jays. And corvids are considered to be the most intelligent birds. And actually, blue jays in captivity have been observed using tools. For instance, there's one where a blue jay is in a cage and there's some food just outside the cage that's not within its reach. It will take a piece of something that's within the cage, reach outside, and use it like a broom to scoop that food to where it can actually get it. So they're actually very smart. So there are some other jays. There's Steller's jays, gray jays, scrub jays, but we're going to confine our talk to the blue jays today. Blue jays are very noisy birds, except when they're on the nest. And they're much more vocal in autumn once parenting is over and they're looking for food in the winter. And they make a large variety of sounds. The most commonly recognized sound is an alarm call, which is a loud, almost gull-like scream. And they'll often make loud calls to warn others that there are predators nearby, like cats or owls. And they also have a high-pitched jayer call that increases in speed as the bird becomes more agitated. And interestingly, they also mimic hawk calls. So again, the blue jays can often be heard mimicking these hawk calls. And there's a couple theories as to why. One is they may actually be warning other jays that there are real hawks nearby. The other is that they're trying to scare other birds away from the bird feeders so they can have those feeders all to themselves. But the hawk calls are so realistic that they've even been fooled by Merlin bird ID at times. Pretty incredible. So let's listen to some of these. Once again, they're very noisy. They have a remarkable repertoire of calls. And you might want to go to the Audubon Field Guide to hear over a dozen calls, or go to the actual video that we're going to play in a minute. But we're going to have to put up with a brief commercial here before we hear all these blue jay calls.
Simparica Trio protects against 3 categories of parasites.
Worm disease, intestinal worm.
This drug class has been associated with neurologic side effects, including seizures. Use with caution in dogs with or without a history of these disorders. Don't just protect, triple protect.
Just when you think it can't get any worse, it does. It has to stop.
Did you know? Blue jays are excellent mimics who can imitate hawk calls very well, and they do so frequently, especially the red-shouldered hawk. It is thought that the imitating a hawk calls is to provide information to other jays that a hawk is or was around, or to fool other species into believing a hawk is present so that they get the food to themselves. But most birds quickly return after the jay starts feeding. Sometimes they use these hawk calls when alone perched in a tree with no apparent danger near. It could be that they find hawk calls easy and close to their jay calls, so they add it to their repertoire. A few years ago, I witnessed a blue jay mimicking merlins, a small falcon, that were nearby courting. The jay done this at the height of breeding season when it was completely alone and clearly making a bunch of other calls. I don't believe it was using their call as an alarm, but rather to add to its repertoire.
Simparica trio protects against 3 categories of parasites.
Okay, blue jays have an interesting courtship relationship. Typically, there are groups of 3 to 10 blue jays that form these courtship groups, and a single female will lead the group, and all the males will follow. So when she flies, they all fly. When she lands, they all land. And she'll eventually choose one male out of that group to be a mate. And that male will continue the courtship by bringing her food. And sometimes the pair will construct some false nests before they start working together to build some real nests. So in terms of mating and reproduction, blue jays are monogamous and they usually mate for life. Only if one dies will they choose another mate. And they stay together year round, not just during the mating season. And the male gets food for the female while she's incubating the eggs on the nest. And both males males will occasionally be known to flirt with other females while their mate is actually on the nest. So they're kind of cheating on the female. The clutch is usually 3 to 5 eggs, maybe between 2 and 7 eggs. And the eggs are bluish or light brown with darker brown spots. And the female will incubate the eggs for 2 to 3 weeks. And both parents will feed the hatchlings. And the young are brooded by the female for 8 to 12 days after they hatch. And the hatchlings will stay in the nest for about 3 weeks. And they'll actually stay with their parents for 1 to 2 months. But then they're sent off on their own in early fall. And usually by the next spring, they're actually ready to mate on their own. So in terms of nesting, blue jays usually return to the same general area to nest each year, but they don't use the same nest that they used the prior year. They actually build a new nest every year. And they'll build open cup nests up in the branches of a tree, most often in a coniferous tree. And the nests are usually made of twigs, but they'll also use lichens, mosses, grass. And they're very well known for using things like paper or plastic that are man-made and white. I'll show you an example in a minute. The nest is usually built 10 to 33 feet above the ground. So again, they use these unusual materials for nesting. They use the usual materials for nesting, things like twigs and sticks and roots, moss, lichens, and grass. But then they have this one unique habit. They often grab something that's man-made and white to incorporate into the nest. So here you see it looks like he's got some tape that he's going to take up and incorporate into the nest. So blue jays have a reputation for being bullies, for a reputation for chasing other birds away from bird feeders. And they can be aggressive when protecting their nests or food sources, but they may tolerate other blue jays at those feeders. And interestingly, sometimes they're the ones that get bullied. They'll get bullied by some woodpeckers, grackles, and some squirrels. So the average blue jay lived 5 to 10 years in the wild, but some actually live much longer. One banded blue jay was found to be almost 27 years old, one that was found dead. They may die from either predation or disease. Predators include hawks, falcons, owls, and occasionally bobcats or foxes. Nestlings and the eggs are preyed upon by snakes, squirrels, raccoons, opossums, domestic cats, crows, and other jays. But the real most serious predator of the blue jay is the domestic cat. They're actually the cause of major mortality. Blue jays will often band together to mob predators that are nearby. And like other corvids, they're also especially vulnerable to West Nile virus. So my favorite Blue Jays, again, the Hopkins Blue Jay, the Toronto Blue Jays, and the Bird Blue Jay, they're all scrappy, they're noisy, they're fun to watch, and they're all winners. Okay, so you probably want to look different at Blue Jays in a different light from now on. So look for some of those behaviors that we described previously. Look for them grabbing acorns in the fall. And if you really want to attract them, put some peanuts in a bird feeder. Keep in mind here at Eastman, you can't put your bird feeders out when bear activity is high. And if you want to see some good references, view almost any video on Blue Jays by Leslie the Bird Nerd. She has a very special relationship with the whole family of Blue Jays. So that's a little bit about Blue Jays. Hopefully, you're going to see them in a different light from now on.